Ron, how are you, buddy?
I am doing great, Eddie. Thanks so much for having me on the show, and greetings, Trunk Nation. Great to be here.
Yeah, man, anytime. You know that. We go back a long, long, long way, and it's always great to talk to you. It's always great to see you. Tell me a little bit about this new music. When did this came out? Not too long ago, right?
March 1st, and there's a lot of serious music on this record. That song, Girls Like Me, is not one of the serious tracks on this album. That's just a fun summertime single, but great story behind this album because, as you know, and many of our fans and listeners know, I relocated to Sioux Falls, South Dakota almost 5 years ago now to be the voice and the face of this great Midwest entertainment franchise empire called Badlands Pond. And it was an opportunity that I could not turn down, so I relocated from Vegas, bailed on Vegas, came to Sioux Falls, and we had a dream come true. I was enabled to put together my dream band of amazing players, be the voice and the face of that franchise, host a daily radio show. I became the number one voice on the number one rock station in the region. Literally, all my dreams come true. However, after a year, that business imploded and stopped functioning, and we were all of a sudden out of a job, out of a gig. I had relocated from Vegas, bought a beautiful house here in Sioux Falls, and had a great band. And the guys in the band and I felt that we had too much momentum to stop. Great chemistry and a great bunch of guys that, like I said, I was able to put together my dream team. And we decided just to keep going and rebrand it as the Ron Keel Band. Well, within 3 weeks of that, my wife, Renee, as you know, was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, and all of a sudden I had to go to guys in my band and tell them I might not be able to tour next year. I need to stay home, take care of her. She went through chemo, radiation, 7 surgeries, and I said, well, we can't tour, and I can't leave. And they still had my back, and they still stuck with me. I said, well, let's go to the basement and write some songs. We can at least put out an album and write some songs. And these guys had my back through the whole process with Renee's breast cancer. It was over a year and a serious ordeal, as anybody who's been touched by cancer knows. It's a life changer. But these songs, especially the title track, Fight Like a Band, came out of that struggle not only to survive and to succeed at this stage of the game, and we ended up with a collection of songs that I feel is very, very close to my heart, very personal, and from the response from the fans and the media, it's touched a nerve with both Keel fans, Ron Keel fans, and people that have followed the twists and turns of my career the last 20-something years. So for me, it's a very rewarding accomplishment to have that record out on EMP Label Group. David Ellison signed us to a great record deal, and now we're on Trunk Nation, so life is good.
Well, Ron, most importantly, let me ask you this. How is your wife now?
Thank you for asking. And she is great. She's sitting here with me in the living room here at our beautiful home in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. She's cancer-free.
Oh, great.
She's been through a lot, and still one more surgery to go next month. But we had a happy ending to that story, as so many of our friends and people that we know and love and hold dear have succumbed to it's a terrible thing to go through. It's a life changer, but like I said, she inspired this music. If you listen to the title track, "Fight Like a Band,"
I'm going to play that. I'm going to play that for everybody when we're done talking, so they'll hear that track as well.
You might.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. That's the first single from the record, but it's the first chorus is "Fight Like a Girl" because she's very tough, and she gave me the inspiration. And through that process, I think creating music, staying active, playing shows, it helped her through that cancer treatment, through the radiation and the chemo, and she saw me happy and having fun and excited and creating with the guys in my band. That music fueled both our life and my business. So this record really is a very personal statement. I had a hard time singing that title track, man. I'll tell you, I was in the studio cutting that lead vocal, and I was crying. I was breaking up, and my co-producer, Mike Dresch, and the engineer who's recording it said, do you need a break? And I said, no, man, let's just plow on one line at a time. And I'm breaking up, singing about her getting the diagnosis and all that we've been through, and then reflecting back on my days on the Sunset Strip when we had one peanut butter and jelly sandwich sliced 4 ways, and that's a cliche, but it's a true story. The guys in Steeler, when we moved to Los Angeles and Hollywood in 1981, that's how we lived, and that struggle to survive and succeed resonates with everybody because we're all trying to do that every day of our life as we continue to move on and try and just get through another day or another song.
Yeah, no doubt. It's interesting. You brought this up a second ago, and thank goodness she's doing better, and I hope she makes, she's the recovery continues successfully, man. That's the most important stuff. But let me ask you this. You bring up something I think is real interesting and the audience might find interesting. This record is on, as you said, EMP Label Group, which is, I joke with him all the time because David Ellefson is, who of course is best known as the bass player in Megadeth and a wonderful guy. He is on a conquest for world domination. I joke with him all the time because he's got the label, he's got the coffee business, he does the bass clinics, he's got a band with Frank Bello from Anthrax, he's got so many things going on. What did you have history with Ellefson for him to reach out to you want to do a record with you? Do you guys go back? How are you connected?
That's a great story too. And Dave and I also, of course, we knew each other back in the Hollywood heyday in the 80s with Steeler and Megadeth. We've known each other for decades. But Dave brought his signature band, his first act, Dollskin, to Sioux Falls in 2015 for a show. And my band was on the bill, and it was Dollskin, and Dave was scheduled to do a performance with us at the end of the night where we do some covers. I actually got to sing Peace Sells and Symphony of Destruction with Dave, which was really cool. But over the course of those 2 days, I got to know Dave as more than an acquaintance. Got to know his passion for his business, for EMP Label Group, for his artists, for everything. We really bonded during that 2-day rehearsal gig experience. And also on the time I was on the radio, I was playing his releases for Mark Slaughter and Autograph, and it seemed like Dave was doing everything right, that he really cared about his artists, that he really cared about doing things right. I did these acts for charting, and they were doing really well. And so when that little alarm clock in my heart went off, and I told the guys, well, I can't tour, but we can make a record. Where do we take it? David Ellefson was my first choice. I sent Dave a demo of the Keel re-recordings, which we had done in the studio, which appear on this Fight Like a Band album. We've got new versions of The Right to Rock, Tears of Fire, and a medley which includes Because the Night and Somebody's Waiting, those Keel classics. I sent that to Dave. He immediately hooked me up with Tom Hazard from the label. We developed a bond and a friendship, and they knew what I was all about. At this stage of the game, most of the labels that I would have pitched or went to probably wanted another Keel record. And we'll talk about Keel, I'm guessing, at some point during the interview. But at this point in my life, where I'm at, my priority, my business, my love, my passion is the Ron Keel Band and the music that I'm creating now. And David looked across the table at me when we signed the record deal, and he looked at me and said, Ron, I just want you to sing your life. Make the music that you want to make, and I'll put it out. And that vote of confidence for me was all I needed to hear. And the relationship with David and EMP has been fantastic. I really thank him for the opportunity to get this record in the hands of the people, and I couldn't have done it without him.
Talk a little bit, Ron, about your musical evolution, because it's interesting. You first came on my radar and a lot of metal fans' radar with that first Steeler record. Of course, Yngwie Malmsteen's first ever recordings, which were still significant to a lot of people to this day. And then, of course, developing Keel. And then for a while, you were kind of doing country flavored music, and now into the Ron Keel Band. So have you always had all those sides to you? Was it always a plan to dabble in that or to try some different turns? Or was that really out of necessity for what you were feeling at the time?
No, absolutely. And I appreciate the opportunity to clarify that. And I continue to clarify that every day in every interview that I do. For me, music is a landscape. There are so many different mountains to climb. There's oceans, there's forests, there's jungles, there's deserts. I grew up playing the blues. I played classical music. I could sight read music in classical orchestras playing a variety of instruments. I grew up in a time when, in the 70s, you could hear Black Sabbath and the Eagles on the same radio station. I didn't know the difference. I heard Paranoid, thought it was a great song. I heard Take It Easy and thought it was a great song. We didn't have those defined barriers between styles back in the day. And so I grew up loving all of this stuff, and I guess as we grow and mature, we try and at some point gravitate to who we really are. And I have a deep, deep love and enjoyment of metal. And there is metal on this record. There are songs that could have been Keel songs. I love that aspect of my life, but I don't want to eat spaghetti every day for the rest of my life. I want to experiment with all the other items on the menu. I want to paint my picture with all the different colors and explore different territories. And I know that's caused my fans some confusion and consternation throughout the years as they wonder, who is this guy and what does this guy do? Well, this guy just writes songs and he just plays music. He entertains people and he creates stuff. Whether anybody really likes it or not, that's beyond my control. My favorite Ron Keel quote is the fact that I sold 3 million records means the billions of people don't like me or don't know who I am. So I'm cool with that. I've got to continue to create and do what my heart tells me. And that's one cool thing about this new Fight Like a Band album from the Ron Keel Band. When we sat down to write those songs, we didn't have any stylistic intentions. We didn't want to make this kind of record or that kind of record. The Streets of Rock and Roll, that last Keel record, which is absolutely killer, by the way, from 2010 on Frontiers Records, that's a Keel record. That's got those big fist-in-your-air anthems and those sing-along choruses and dueling guitar solos. That's a Keel album. When we sat down to write this one, we just wrote the best songs we could. And there's one country song on the record. I don't want to sway the scales left or right, but the song Just a Cowboy, which is on the album, it's a country song, and I'll cop to it. But it was not my intention to put the song on the record. The guys in the band loved it and said, Ron, this is a great song. It's got to be on the album. And so I gave in, and it's a great song. It is country. It's something like the Eagles could have done back in 1972, but it's a great song. And there are some stylistic twists and turns in this record, and that's been my trademark since 86 when Gene Simmons took the handcuffs off. But we did the Right to Rock album, and that is a very one-dimensional record. It's a hard, heavy, in-your-face, fist in the air. Gene Simmons produced a hard rock epic. But once that had some level of success, Gene let me do what I wanted to do, and The Final Frontier in 1986 was the result. That album shows that certain diversity that's become my trademark. On that record, there is bone-crushing metal like Rock and Roll Animal and No Pain, No Gain. There are also Because the Night, Tears of Fire, power ballad. There's a classical piece on that record. There's pop metal on that record like Just Another Girl. So that was the seed, so to speak, of my diversity, wanting to create an album that took you on a ride and takes you through different emotions as we watch a movie. You got to have your car chase, you got to have your fight scene, you got to have your sex scene, you got to have all these different elements to make a great movie. I think we have to have all those same elements to make a great album, and Fight Like a Band has all of that.
And the record, it's under the name the Ron Keel Band. You've mentioned that this band is important to you. Who is the band? Are there any guys that we would know? How did you find these guys? Who else is playing on this record with you?
Like I said when I started the interview, I was able to assemble my dream team, and I called together two guys in particular that I had played with before. Gino Arce on bass, who has been with me for 21 years. He's been the bass player in Keel for the last 10 years.
Right, I've met him.
He's been my right hand. Yeah,
we've shared a few shuttle rides to and from cruises or whatever the case may be. So I definitely remember meeting him. Right. Yeah,
and I had to reach. He's my first call, and I didn't think he would take the gig. But I had to call him and said, Gino, man, I got this great opportunity. I'm going to Sioux Falls. I'm going to put together my dream band. I know you can't do the gig, but I got to offer it to you. And he said, yes, and he's here. And he's still here. D.C. Cawthon, who Gino recruited from Columbus, Ohio, I walked into a Ron Keel band gig where it was one of those flying gigs where Gino's putting the band together and rehearsing them, and they're learning all of my songs from my catalog, from Keel, Steeler, Iron Horse, and all this stuff, a very diverse catalog. And I walked into that first rehearsal, and Dave, D.C., the guitar player, was nailing everything, singing all the high harmonies, shredding the guitar, and I fell in love with him at that moment, and we're still best friends. In fact, I called him right before this interview and said, man, I'm going to talk to Eddie, and we're just really, really best friends, and I pegged him as the guitar player in this band. I got a guitar player from Nashville, Tennessee called Steve Doc Purcell. He's the twanger, and he played on the record. He did all the Badlands House Band shows with us. He's still in Nashville, but he came up for our record release party and joined us. Two guys from the South Dakota Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that I met and have been playing with since I moved here. Jeff the Rev Kohler on drums from the South Dakota Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a lifer, and just an amazing human being, amazing drummer, singer, songwriter, and Dakota Scott on keyboards. And we've got this big production. Also, I want to mention Jason Haven, the new guy in the band. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to introduce the guys, because they're what this is all about. I'm doing this for them to help make their dreams come true. But Jason Haven, our new guitar player, who just joined the band, 5-6 months ago, when I realized there's a ton of guitar on this record, man, I need some help. I don't want to be chained to the guitar for the whole night, so let's bring in this other great guitar player, Jason Haven. And these guys, like I said, they've been my support group, my family, it's like an amazing combination of people and talent. And it's a big production. We built this thing to be huge. We got trucks, and we got the Keith Emerson keyboard rig. It's a mountain of keyboard gear, and the Neil Peart drum set, and the risers, and the stage, and the ramps, and the catwalks. And we built it big with pyro and the whole deal. And now, once we built it, very difficult to scale it down. So it's expensive, but it's worth it.